What if I told you that tantric sex can make your relationship stronger? Watch closely, as you may find it difficult to go back to your regular sex by the end of this video, because the old ways of being intimate just wouldn't cut it anymore. Now, before you say tantric sex, isn't that some weird, complicated thing only super spiritual people do? Well, I'm here to tell you this. It isn't. After helping hundreds of couples save their marriages and single men find love, I can assure you that tantric sex is way more accessible than you might think. And if you stay till the end, I'll reveal the 6 steps to have tantric sex. Now, let's start with a hard truth. Most of us are living in a world that is seriously messed up. When it comes to sex, we're bombarded with mixed messages. On one hand, sex is everywhere, in ads, in movies, in music. But on the other hand, there's still so much shame and secrecy around it. It's like we're told being sexy, but not too sexy. To want sex, but not to talk about it. Exhausting, isn't it? And here's the thing. This confusion and shame is robbing us of something incredible. Something that goes way beyond just feeling good for a few minutes. I'm talking about the kind of sex that can heal you, transform you, and connect you to something bigger than yourself. That's where tantric sex comes in. Now, don't worry. I'm not about to tell you to sit in a weird position for hours and chant in Sanskrit, unless you want to, of course. Tantric sex, at its core, it's about making sex sacred. It's about bringing mindfulness, intention, and yes, even a touch of spirituality into the bedroom. But why should you care? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt that there's something missing in your sex life? Like you're going through the motions but not really connecting. Or maybe you had moments of incredible bliss during sex, but they're brief and you can't seem to recreate them. If you're nodding your head right now, you're not alone. So many of us are walking around with this nagging feeling that there's more to sex than what we're experiencing. And you know what? You're right. The thing is, tantric sex isn't just about having better orgasms. Although that is definitely a perk, it's about tapping into a wellspring of energy that can transform your entire life. I'm talking about feeling more alive, more connected to your partner, and more in tune with yourself. But I get it. You might be thinking, sure, that sounds great, but I'm just a regular person. I'm not some yoga guru or spiritual master. And that's exactly why I'm here, to show you that you don't need to be any different from who you are to start exploring tantric sex. Maybe you're single or in a new relationship or dealing with sexual issues. The beautiful thing about tantric sex, it meets you where you are, whether you're looking to deepen your connection with a long-term partner, spice things up in the bedroom, or even just connect more deeply with yourself. Tantric practice is your friend. It's not about achieving some perfect ideal of sexuality. It's about embracing and exploring your own unique sexual energy. But I'll be honest with you. This journey isn't always easy. It requires you to be vulnerable, to face your fears and insecurities head on. It might bring up old wounds or challenge beliefs you held for a long time. But that's also where the magic happens. As you start to peel back the layers of conditioning and shame around sex, you'll be surprised at what you find. You find yourself being more confident, more in touch with your body, and more able to communicate your needs and desires. And here's something interesting. The benefits of tantric sex don't stop at the bedroom door. As you become more open and connected sexually, other areas of your life start to flourish too. Relationships improve, creativity flows more freely, and you get a greater sense of overall well-being. So are you ready to start your tantric journey? Are you willing to open yourself up to a whole new way of experiencing sex and intimacy? I won't lie, it might feel a bit strange at first. You might fumble, you might feel awkward, you might even wonder if you're doing it right, But the truth is, there's no right way to do tantric sex. It's a journey of exploration, of getting to know yourself and your partner on a deeper level. And the only way to start is to, well, start. Now, if you're a man looking to attract love, or maybe you're married and want to reignite love with your partner, click the link below in the description and watch my free masterclass and start transforming your love life today. Alright, let's dive deeper into the world of tantric sex and how this practice can literally change your brain, your relationship, and even the world. Yeah, it's that powerful. Remember how we talked about sex being more than just a physical act? Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Tantric sex isn't just about having a good time. It's about accessing altered states of consciousness. You probably heard about the benefits of meditation, right? How it can reduce stress, improve focus, and even change your brain structure over time. Well, tantric sex is like meditation, but on steroids. When you're fully present during sex, when you're focused on the sensations in your body and the connection with your partner, your brain starts to shift gears. You get hits like those induced by psychedelic drugs. I'm talking about feelings of oneness with the universe, dissolving of the ego, and profound spiritual insights. And all this without ingesting a single substance. But how is this possible? It all comes down to something called the default mode network. This is a part of your brain that's most active when you're lost in thoughts, worrying about the future, or criticizing yourself. It's basically the home of your ego. When activity in your 𝗔𝗯𝗵 decreases, something amazing happens. The constant chatter in your mind quiets down. You become more present, more connected to your body and your surroundings. And this is exactly what happens during deep meditation, psychedelic experiences, and yes, tantric sex. Now, I'm not saying tantric sex is exactly the same as taking psychedelics, but the similarities in your brain activity are fascinating, and it suggests that through sex we have access to profound states of consciousness that most of us never tap into. But let's get real for a second. Accessing these states isn't always easy. We're up against a lifetime of conditioning about sex. Society has filled our heads with all sorts of ideas about what sex should look like, how long it should last, what normal and what isn't. And let's not even get started on all the shame and guilt many of us carry around. Breaking free from all this baggage is tough. It requires courage. It requires vulnerability. And perhaps most challenging of all, it requires us to let go of control. Think about it. How often during sex are you in your head, worrying about how you look, whether you're doing it right, or if she's going to orgasm? All the time, right? This constant mental chatter is the opposite of what we're aiming for in tantric sex. In Tantra, we're asked to surrender. Let go of our expectations and our need to control the outcome. And for many people, especially those of us who are raised in Western cultures that value control and achievement, this can be terrifying. But here's the thing. On the other side of that fear is freedom. When you learn to surrender in sex, you open yourself up to experiences of pleasure and connection that go far beyond what most people ever experience. But it's not just about individual experiences. Tantric sex can heal you on a much broader scale. Think about the state of gender relation in our world right now. There's so much tension, so much misunderstanding between men and women. Now, imagine if more people were approaching intimacy with mindfulness, respect, and focus on connection rather than just physical release. This is where tantric sex becomes revolutionary. It's not just about having better sex. It's about healing the divide between masculine and feminine energies. It's about creating deeper, more authentic connections between partners. And ultimately, it's about bringing more love and consciousness into the world. But the beauty of tantric sex is that you can start small and still see big benefits. Maybe you start by simply focusing on your breath during sex, or by spending more time on foreplay and really savoring each sensation. These small steps can lead to big changes in how you experience intimacy. But I'll warn you, once you start down this path, you might find it hard to go back to regular sex because the old ways of being intimate just wouldn't cut it anymore. And it's not just about sex itself. As you become more present and connected during intimacy, you find these qualities spilling over into other areas of your life. You become more attuned to your own needs and feelings. You find it easier to communicate openly with your partner. You even find yourself feeling more connected to the world around you. This is the true power of tantric sex, a doorway to a whole new way of being, a way of living that is more present, more connected, and ultimately more fulfilling. Stay tuned for my 6 steps on how to practically start having tantric sex with your partner. Now, let's talk about the intersection between neuroscience and tantric sex. I know some of you might be rolling your eyes to the idea of mixing science with something as spiritual as Tantra. But here's the thing, understanding the biology behind these experiences doesn't make them any less magical. If anything, it makes them even more incredible. Let's start with something called neuroplasticity. It's a fancy term for what basically means your brain can change and adapt based on your experiences. Every time you learn a new skill or form a new habit, your brain is literally rewiring itself. And guess what? Tantric sex is like a workout for your brain. When you engage in tantric practices, you're not just pleasuring your body. You're training your brain to focus, to be present, and to experience pleasure in new ways. Over time, this can actually change the structure and function of your brain. But it gets even more cool. Remember how we talked about the default mode network earlier? Well, studies have shown that during deep meditation, which has a lot in common with tantric sex, activity in the DMN decreases a lot. And when that happens, some pretty wild stuff starts to occur. For one, the boundaries between yourself and the other start to blur. This is where many people report feeling a sense of oneness or unity during sex. It's not just flowery language. It's your brain literally changing how it processes information about you and your environment. And here is where it gets really interesting. This decrease in the DMN activity is also seen in people who are using psychedelic drugs like psilocybin or LSD. I'm not advocating for drug use here, but the parallels are fascinating. Both psychedelics and tantric sex seem to open up similar pathways in the brain, leading to experiences of bliss, unity, and even what some might call spiritual awakening. These changes in your brain don't just lead to mystical experiences. They also have some very practical benefits. For example, that decreased activity in the DMN, it's associated with reduced anxiety and depression. So by practicing tantric sex, you might actually be improving your mental health. And that's not all. The focused attention required in tantric practices can improve your overall concentration and mindfulness. Plus, let's not forget about the feel-good chemicals your brain releases during sex. We're talking about dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, nature's own antidepressants and bonding agents. Tantric sex, with its emphasis on prolonged pleasure and deep connection, can lead to a flood of these chemicals in your brain. Now, I can almost hear some of your skeptics out there. This all sounds good and great, but where is the proof? While research specifically on tantric sex is still limited, there's a growing body of evidence supporting the benefits of mindfulness and meditation in sex. For instance, a study published in the Journal of Sex Research found that mindfulness-based therapies could significantly improve sexual desire and arousal in women. Another study in the Archives of Sexual Behaviors showed that men who practice mindfulness report a better sexual function and satisfaction. But the fun part is, these studies are just looking at basic mindfulness. Imagine the potential benefits when you add in all other elements of tantric practice. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Delving into tantric sex can bring up some challenges too. As you become more present and aware during intimacy, you might find yourself facing fears or insecurities you've been avoiding. Old traumas or negative beliefs about sex might surface. This is where the real work begins. Because Tantra isn't just about feeling good. It's about healing and growth. It's about facing those shadows head on and working through them. And while this process can be tough, it's incredibly rewarding. Now, I know some of you might feel a bit overwhelmed at this point, and that's okay. The beauty of tantric sex is that you can start small and work your way up. Now, let's get practical. I'm about to share some powerful techniques you can start using right away to bring more mindfulness and connection into your sex life. So stick around because things are about to get really interesting and maybe even a little steamy too. Alright, it's time to get practical. You heard about the transformative power of tantric sex, the science behind it, and you got a glimpse of what the journey looks like. Now you're probably thinking, okay, cool, but how do I actually do this? Don't worry, I got you covered. We're about to explore the 6 key tantric techniques that you can start using right away. These are the building blocks of tantric sex, the tools that will help you tap into deeper pleasure, stronger connection, and yes, maybe even those mind-blowing orgasms we've been talking about earlier. But before we jump in, I want to make something clear. These techniques aren't about performance. They're not about doing it right or achieving some perfect ideal of tantric sex. They're about exploration, about tuning into your body and your partner's body in new ways. So approach them with curiosity and playfulness, not pressure. Step number 1, consecrate your tantric ritual. This is where it all begins. Consecration is about setting an intention for your sexual encounter. It's like hitting a reset button, letting go of your day-to-day stresses and entering into a sacred space with your partner. Here's how you can practice it. Sit facing each other, take a few deep breaths, and state your intention out loud. You might say something like, I dedicate this time to connect deeply with you. Or, I open myself to experience pleasure fully. Or, I offer the fruits and results of this practice to the divine feminine. Yeah, it feels a bit awkward at first, but trust me, it sets a powerful tone for what's to come. Step number 2, eye gazing with your partner. This one is simple but significant. Sit face to face with your partner, knees touching and hands holding. Now, here's the secret. Focus on your partner's left eye. Try to maintain a steady gaze without getting distracted by banter or laughter. Now, this isn't about staring each other down, it's about connecting deeply beyond the physical. There's an old saying that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and eye gazing really brings that to life. Aim for a few minutes to start and see what comes up for you. Step 3, transfiguration meditation. This is where things start to get really interesting. Transfiguration is about seeing beyond the physical form of your partner. Visualize your partner as the embodiment of the goddess or god, as embodying their highest self. As you continue to adore one another, allow yourself to see past the surface. You might notice your partner's face or body seemingly change or transform. Don't be surprised if you start seeing different faces or even abstract patterns. This is normal and can be a deeply amazing experience. It's like you're getting a glimpse of your partner's souls or the many aspects of their being. Step 4, sacred touch. Now, moving on to the more physical aspects of tantric sex. Sacred touch is about slowing down and really savoring every sensation. Think of it as the opposite of rushing towards orgasm. Instead, touch your partner with full presence and attention. Extend foreplay for up to 20 to 30 minutes. Imagine you're wearing energetic gloves, like feeling every fingertip caress. Listen to the whisper of the breath in each other's ears. Create a flow state where every touch feels sacred and deeply pleasurable. Step 5. Synchronized breathing. As you move into lovemaking, bring your attention to your breath. Watch your partner closely. When do they inhale? How deep is their breath? Now, try to match it. Inhale when they inhale. Exhale when they exhale. At first, you might need to really focus on this, but with practice, you find yourself naturally falling into sync. This alignment of breath will create a powerful energetic connection and synergy, amplifying the pleasure and intimacy you're experiencing. Step 6. Sublimation of sexual energy. This final step is crucial. During and after your lovemaking session, take a moment to consciously move that sexual energy upward through your body. This practice, also known as transmutation, helps prevent any stagnant energy from pooling in your lower chakras. To sublimate, focus on your breath. As you exhale, imagine drawing the energy up from your genitals through your body and out to the top of your head. Doing this instead of ejaculating helps you to distribute that powerful sexual energy throughout your entire being, leaving you feeling energized and balanced rather than drained. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but what if I feel silly? What if I can't get it to work? First of all, it's totally normal to feel a bit awkward when you're trying something new. Even seasoned practitioners have moments when they feel self-conscious. The key is to approach these practices with a sense of playfulness and curiosity. If you start giggling during eye gazing, that's okay. Laugh together and then try again. If you can't seem to feel the energy moving during sublimation, that's fine too. Keep practicing, stay curious, and trust that your body knows what it's doing. Remember, there's no failing at tantric sex. Every experience, whether it's ecstatic or awkward, is an opportunity to learn and grow. The point is, whatever comes up as you explore these practices, laughter, tears, frustration, bliss, is all part of the journey. It's all valuable. It's all bringing you into a deeper connection with yourself and your partner. Now, a word of caution. Tantric practices can bring up intense emotions or even past traumas. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to pause or stop. Be gentle with yourself. And if you're dealing with serious trauma, it might be helpful to work with a non-traditional therapist or trauma-informed tantric practitioner. Now, I encourage you to start small. Pick 1 or 2 of these techniques to try out this week. See how they feel. What do they bring up for you? Be patient with yourself and your partner as you explore. Remember, it's not about getting it perfect. It's about showing up and being present. All right, we covered a lot of ground, but let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. Because the truth is, your tantric journey isn't about you. It's not even about you and your partner. It has the potential to create waves of positive change that ripple out far beyond your bedroom. I know, it sounds a bit overblown. Come on, Steffo, how is my sex life going to change the world? Now, hear me out, because this is where things get really interesting. Let's start with the most immediate impact, your relationship. When you start practicing tantric sex, you're not just changing how you have sex, you're changing how you relate to each other on a fundamental level. You're learning to be more present, more communicative, more vulnerable. You're creating a deeper bond of trust and intimacy. Now, think about how that might affect the rest of your relationship. Suddenly, you're bringing that same presence and openness to your everyday interactions. You're more attuned to each other's needs. You're better at working through conflicts. You're creating a relationship that's more loving, more supporting, more fulfilling. And that improved relationship, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It affects everyone around you. Your kids, if you have them, will grow up seeing a model of healthy, loving partnership. Your friends and family benefits from your increased patience, understanding, and emotional availability. You become a living example of what a conscious, connected relationship can look like. But it goes even deeper than that. As you progress on your tantric journey, you're likely to notice changes in yourself. Many of my clients clients report feeling more confident, more at peace with themselves, more in tune with their emotions and needs. They often find themselves making positive changes in other areas of their lives, eating healthier, exercising more, pursuing long-held dreams. These personal transformations, they're not small things. When you show up in the world as a more authentic, confident, alive version of yourself, you impact everyone you interact with. You inspire others to do the same. You become a force for positive change in your community. But that's not all. Remember how we talked about tantric sex being a way to balance masculine and feminine energies? Well, imagine what will happen by doing this work in your own life, by learning to honor both the masculine and feminine within yourself and your relationship. You're contributing to a larger shift. You're part of a movement towards a more balanced, harmonious way of being in the world. Now, I'm not saying that practicing tantric sex is going to solve all the world's problems overnight, but what I'm trying to say is that it's a powerful tool for personal and collective transformation. Every time you choose presence over distraction, connection over isolation, love over fear, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. Of course, this journey isn't always easy. As you start to embody these changes, you might face resistance from yourself, from your partner, from society at large. You might find that some relationships no longer serve you. You might have to make tough choices about how you want to live your life. These challenges, they're part of the journey. They're opportunities for growth, for reaffirming your commitment to this path. And each time you choose to stay true to yourself, to keep showing up for this work despite the difficulties, you're contributing to a larger shift in consciousness. Because the truth is, we're at a critical point in human history. We are facing unprecedented challenges, environmental, social, political, and at the root of many of these challenges is a fundamental disconnect. A disconnect from our bodies, from each other, from the planet we call home. Congratulations, you now know everything about tantric sex and how it significantly improves your love life. But if you want a complete guide on how to become a sex god in 90 days, then click right here and I'll see you in the next one. Blessings.